The Xbox Drive is powered by patrons at patreon.com/YumiCapri. And I want to thank our Diamond executive producers, Slimer Snarf, Jonathan Brown, and Lee Navarro. Our gold members, Xavier Reyes, Tabitha Carroll, Becky Grockmall, Ashley Nicholson, Argo, Gene K, Marcus O'Neill, Ray Sony Pony Martinez, Trucker Sloth, Zach Bradshaw, Skinny Matt, and James Johnson. If you'd like to support the show, go to patreon.com/YumiCapri. Hey everyone, it's me, Sean Capri. I'm in my car and you're listening to the most horsepower podcast on the internet. It's the Xbox Drive. I'm on a Skype call with my friend Ryan Turford. He's the man on the moose, and on our journey today, we're going to pick up Ashton Kutcher because y'all got Cyberpunk. So jump on into the Xbox Drive. Ball! Cyberpunk's pun ball!
Greater than X.
Hello, Sean Capri.
Hi, Ryan Turford. I think everybody on the internet is happy about video games this week. How are you?
I am doing well. I also think everyone's super happy this week, Sean, with how video games are turning out.
We're enjoying our hobby.
Great. Exactly. But the thing is, Sean, I can't believe that I'm saying this. 2020 is almost over. Can you believe
it's happening? Mm-hmm. It's coming to a close. Yeah, let's just get rid of it. Let's fold it up into a box. We'll throw it out the window, but a biodegradable box because we don't want to litter.
Well, of course not. We don't. We saw what happened in the Perfect Dark trailer. We don't want that to be us, Sean. We don't want the eco-terrorism to take over, Sean.
It might already be taking over.
Of course. But the reason I brought that up, the reason I brought up the end of 2020 is, number one, this is going to be the last show of 2020 for us, Sean. Can you believe it?
Oh my God.
It's over.
I can't believe it. It's good, man. I think we had, I think Spotify told us that we did like 150 episodes or something this year.
We did. Yeah.
We need a brand. Most of that is you. Like most of that is you doing the, all the extra mile, the reviews that you did this year. And obviously, doing the other show that you did that I don't know why I'm blanking on the name.
The Roundabout or the Crossroads
on the
or
Crossroads
the Extra Mile.
Now, the Roundabout, of course. I drive when I do this show. I don't know how to do this. So many shows. I think we're going to take a little bit of a break, you know? So I'm excited about it. It's bittersweet that this will be the last time that you and I record something this year, but hopefully everybody understands. You know, we're just taking a little bit of a break.
Yeah, so the idea, fam, just so y'all know, because this is something we came up kind of with after we recorded last week's episode, is essentially we're going to take a 2-week break. In fact, I don't think in the show's history, other than the time where you were without a co-host, I think after Dave left, that was the only break you've had, Sean, for this show since you started it. So I think that we're going to be off for a couple weeks, basically until January 6th will be the next time we record, so January 7th will be y'all's first show.
That makes me really nervous, to be honest with you. It sounded like a good idea on paper. Then I'm like, that's a lot of time. But hopefully people understand.
We said 2 weeks, so that's 2 weeks. It sounds longer than it actually is. Trust me. Those 2 weeks are going to fly by. And not only that, folks, we're not going to leave you hanging. I mean, there is going to be content over the holidays. It's mostly just going to be the Crossroads with me,
right?
Because those episodes are going to continue to come out each week, just as you can expect them to. We may throw some surprises in over the holidays. It just kind of depends on how things line up. But at the very least, you're going to get the Crossroads, and then my live streams are actually starting back up this week. I'm going to be off next week for Christmas, but I'm going to do one probably earlier in the week now that my internet's actually fixed. So you can actually look for those on the YouTube channel on Thursday. And then, so we'll be back with our main show on January 6th, which also brings me to my next point. Game of the Year 2020 will be happening, but not until January, because Sean and I both kind of wanted to take the break to play some games also that we might have missed this year, to be able to talk about them for Game of the Year. So we kind of wanted to wait on that. Originally, I think we both decided we wanted to wait because Cyberpunk was coming out, but we can already pretty much rule out that that's going to be in the conversation.
Probably not Game of the Year.
Probably not, but it also gives us time to actually play a lot of the games that we kind of missed. Because I was actually listening back to our conversation from last year, Sean, earlier today, and we both kind of lamented over some games that we missed. And now that we've got these 2 weeks, we're going to have time to actually maybe revisit some of those. So
possibly.
Or maybe just play Destiny the entire time.
I think they'll give us a chance to reach out to the community as well and maybe get some input from you guys as well. I love what Badbit does on the trophy room. Like the way that they do Game of the Year, I think is awesome. And we've not talked about this. I'm just really throwing this out there in this moment.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Sean, because you didn't look at the notes, because I actually put something in here about this. we are going to be doing our Game of the Year discussion when we come back.
Yeah.
We would love you, dear listener
you
or
go.
viewer who's watching this video or listening to this, to be a part of this. So actually, what I would like y'all to do over the 2 weeks that we're going to be away is, if you would like to be part of our Game of the Year discussion, I want you to reach out to me on Twitter at Ryan Turford, or you can actually share your video or audio recording with me via Google Drive at ryanturford@gmail.com. Again, all the info for this is in the description of this video or in the show notes. By January 3rd, I need all of your things in, because I'm going to edit them into a nice package and put some B-roll and stuff on it and make it all look all fancy. And I need some time to do that. So by January 3rd, I kind of need everyone's submissions in for that. If you would like to just give us text, if you don't feel like putting your voice out there or putting your video out there, we'll definitely take those as well. Again, you can reach out to me on Twitter, or we'll actually be tweeting a tweet out about this that I'm going to embed in the show notes later today. Basically asking people for stuff. So yes, we definitely want people to be part of it. And we actually got some people doing, we had Garrett Bland and Donnie Reese do recordings last year, as well as a whole bunch of people submitting their picks just via Twitter or Discord.
Nice.
And we're gonna do that again as well. So yeah, we want you guys to be part of the show, because it's as much of a celebration for Sean and I for the year of 2020 as much as it is for the Xbox Drive community. And we kind of want you guys to be part of that.
Yeah, man. There's too many games. There's too many games even for the Ryan Turford to play all the games. God knows that I can't get around to everything, but certainly, like you played an astronomical number of games this year. So the fact that you're giving some extra time to play even more is awesome, and I can't wait to celebrate this. But yeah, I think the timing makes sense. I also wonder, like, I'd love some feedback from people on this decision of ours too. I wonder, like, how much podcasting consumption happens over the holidays. I'm not really sure, and everything seems kind of like bonus or extra, and that's not what we want to do here on the Xbox Drive. It doesn't want I don't want anything to feel bonus or optional. It's like, this is mandatory listening, man. We want to make it special and worthwhile for people.
Well, exactly. Like, if anything comes out over the holidays, it won't be because we felt like we needed to fill the time with something or pad it with something. It would be because, hey, this was the best time to do this kind of thing. Like,
big time.
Like my Xbox Series S review, which is coming, and it'll most likely come over the holidays. So I think something like that is something I've wanted to do for a while, especially now that the console's been out for a month. And I think now is probably the perfect time to do that. Not because we need content over the holidays, but just because I think I'll have more time to work on it.
All right.
There we go.
Good.
Also, last thing before we get into the show proper, because it's going to be let me tell you what, it's going to be a show
doozy.
today.
It's a doozy.
We are still giving away 1 year of Xbox Game Pass when we hit 500 subscribers on YouTube. So if you are watching us on YouTube and you haven't already subscribed, or if you're listening to us on audio and you haven't checked out the YouTube channel, you should really do that. We have the full show on there on YouTube, as well as a whole bunch of other cool stuff. Go to youtube.com/the Xbox Drive. All you have to do to enter is subscribe. That's it. Then you're entered to win 1 year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate once we hit 500 subscribers. We're at 269 right now, Sean. That nice number.
No more. Just kidding. We did it. We'll give away a year now.
No, Sean. We could get to 569. Yeah, exactly. So definitely make sure to. We're going to keep throwing that out there until you guys actually get us there. So make sure to check that out. Also, again, if you haven't watched the video version of The Crossroads, I highly recommend checking it out there, because I do some interesting things with the video version that
it's so good.
You should definitely check out as well. So it is definitely worth watching there. But Sean, enough about that. Enough about the rambling. We should just grab our 8 tracks and pop into the playlist. Before we get to the big topic du jour of the big game with the C in the name of the game, Sean, I need to know what you've been playing, because I know you haven't been playing it.
I finished a game, Ryan. Can you believe it?
You did?
I finished a game. It was a 3-hour game, and it was technically a DLC. But I finished the Hivebusters DLC that came out just yesterday, actually. Gears 5 DLC, story campaign, story content. Basically telling the story of Keegan, Mac, and Landy. I don't know the third person's name. Who are the Scorpio Squad? They're the ones who go in on in the escape mode. And this is an awesome 3 hours of Gears of War, dude. Like, this is excellent. The story, I would say, is secondary to the locations that you explore, and obviously the combat in Gears is like second to none. But I played with Donnie Reese from the Xbox Empire, and we had a blast playing through this yesterday, man. Like, the variety of landscapes that we went through, we just kept taking screenshots. So you should definitely follow at Eat the Hype and check out all the screenshots he was taking. I've got a couple, but my gametography does not match Donnie's. And we had an absolute blast picking up all the different weapons and blasting through all the different monsters. And there's a unique kind of mechanic in it where you'll discover hidden upgrades. And so each of the 3 characters that you'll play with, regardless if you're playing with people or not, if it was just the 2 of us, but the 3rd character was played by an AI, they each have a special upgrade that you'll find hidden throughout the world in the 6 chapters that compile the whole campaign. And so I was playing as Keegan, who Donnie lovingly referred to as the blaxploitation character. Like he's voiced by Dave Fennoy, and it's phenomenal. This is the Gears character that I want all the time. It's just like, oh yeah, like it's awesome. He's expressive and just he's great. His special kind of ultimate is you hit Y and you'll start to refill ammunition. But as you upgrade this, as you find the hidden upgrades throughout the world, every time you use your ultimate, it'll do evolve things. Like it'll advance. So maybe it'll protect you a little bit, or maybe it'll reload some of your explosive ammunition instead of just your basic ammunition, things like that. And it goes all the way across the 3 characters, each with their ultimate. And it was just like this extra little, I don't know, it felt kind of like arcadey, but still grounded, and also it encouraged us to explore the world and explore the campaign that wasn't like Gears 5 open world. But Donnie and I kept, and I'm sure he'll talk about this on the Xbox Empire, he kept making a lot of Uncharted comparisons. And I don't disagree, man. Like, it's not like you're, hanging from the side of a cruise ship or a train and there's no grappling sort of mechanics to it, but the landscapes and the variety in the landscapes and that sort of like linear but still kind of exploring it felt very Uncharted. Definitely, if anybody who's played over on PlayStation will enjoy this. And man, I want to play it again. Honestly, like I would play through this many, many times, and I hope they do more of this in the Gears world and even other worlds, even Halo. I love this. I'm not normally a DLC type of person, but it came with Game Pass Ultimate. It was like pay $20 for the DLC or $1 for 3 months of Game Pass. So I actually had a friend of mine reach out to say, I've never done this Game Pass. Like, how does it work? Because I want this DLC. And I think a lot of people are going to be doing that, Ryan, where they just these are the types of things that will push them into Game Pass and get them locked in. But I'm rambling. I had a great time with it, man.
Dude, that's awesome to hear. I mean, I told you before that I was excited to check out Gears 5 when the Series X came out, but I knew that the DLC was coming soon, so I kind of really wanted to hold off revisiting Gears. And now that the DLC's out and it sounds great,
it's excellent.
There's definitely a reason for me to go back to this game now, and I'm excited to check this out. I know that I wasn't able to play with you guys last night, but I am excited to see what this game's all about. And like you said, a couple hours of an experience. It kind of reminds you almost like Uncharted Lost Legacy or something.
That's
like
what
that.
we talked about.
That's what I'm excited to play. So
yeah, it's not quite as long. And honestly, I did expect it to end in like an escape type of situation. I don't think it's a spoiler. Well, I guess it's not in there. Like, don't expect that. Don't go in there expecting that. And the story goes places. It's definitely not like your typical Gear story. It's very Uncharted. It's very Tomb Raider, even in some ways. And you guys will just have to play to know what I'm talking about. But I would play this over and over and over again. And I think people will connect differently with the various characters. They're very, very different. And they're stretching the wings on Gears. It does make me want to play more Escape. That's probably the biggest thing. Like, if I'm gonna play this, and I feel like I've kind of walked away from the standard Gears 5 multiplayer. But I feel like there's a place for me with Escape because it's more that PvE, but different from Horde, if that makes any sense. So this is a game that Series X, anybody should play. This is on all Xbox One or Series consoles, so people should pick it up.
You also play Call of the Sea, so tell me about that.
Oh, Call of the Sea is very good. I thought it was going to be it appears to be a first-person walking simulator, like a narrative-driven kind of like Ethan Carter or Edith Finch or Gone Home or something like that. I didn't realize that they was quite so puzzle-heavy. And again, Donnie did a wonderful job explaining this on the Xbox Empire that people should definitely check out. I'm only a couple chapters into it, but I am digging it, man. Cissy Jones is one of the best in the industry and plays the lead character on this. And you find yourself on this mystical island, and you play a character searching for her husband who ventured to this island trying to find a cure for an illness that she's got. And whole mystery kind of unfails, and I'm really enjoying it because the puzzles are challenging. I hear that they get even more challenging, but so far they're pushing back on me just enough that when I solve them, I feel really, really smart. And again, it feels kind of like an Uncharted, as almost like a Tomb Raider without the platforming. As I do sort of environmental puzzle solving, if that makes sense. I'm really liking it, man. It's kind of it's a chill. It's not really chill. It's just different from Assassin's Creed. And if we were to do something over the holidays, I would want to talk about, honestly, like how we game, because that has really been challenging, I would say, over the last couple of months with the onslaught even of just Ubisoft games. But I've appreciated games like, well, the DLC, which is 3 hours in Gears 5, and then this game which is certainly a smaller scale game, and I really am appreciating it. So people, I think that was on Game Pass as well. Call of the Sea? Yeah. So people should also check that one out if they need a palate cleanser. It's really cool.
Dude, that sounds awesome. Yeah, again, that sounds like a great palate cleanser for the bajillion open world action games that we've got right now.
It's a lot.
It's part of the reason I talked about it a little bit off air, but it's part of the reasons why I put Immortals down. It's just like, I can't do this anymore.
I know.
There's too many open world games. And I think that definitely is actually a really good topic. Maybe something we'll revisit at some point. But speaking of palate cleansers, Sean, before I get into the big topic, I also played another game this week, a much more positive one. Panzer Dragoon Remake.
Oh, did you jump into it? That's awesome. Oh,
yeah,
good.
So you had sent me the code for this. We had gotten it from the publisher. And it was a game that when I heard they were remaking it, I got really excited for it because I've actually never played the original Panzer Dragoon. I'm actually showing on the video right now. I actually have the Sega Saturn import of Panzer Dragoon 2, as well as I played Panzer Dragoon Orta on Xbox, which I think that game is incredible. And honestly, I think that it was cool to see finally a version of this come to Xbox. I mean, Sega Saturn games, for those that don't collect Sega Saturn games, are infamously expensive, and it's really kind of annoying to pick up a Sega Saturn nowadays. So it is definitely worthwhile to revisit some of these titles because some of them are actually really good. And Panzer Dragoon Remake.
Thank you, too.
Well, I've heard there's been some misfires with it as opposed to the original version of the game. I don't really have that basis of comparison, so I'm not going to touch on any of that stuff. But the remake itself is pretty fun. It's a on-rail shooter.
What is it? Oh, yeah, there you go.
It's an on-rail shooter where you fly around on the back of a dragon. You've got a gun, and you're basically shooting at a bunch of ships.
Thank you.
It's very reminiscent of something like Star Fox or other on-rail shooters. So if you like games like Star Fox, I think you're actually probably going to really like Panzer Dragoon Remake. Again, it's not perfect. It's a very arcadey experience. The story doesn't make any goddamn sense at all. But at the same time, the gameplay's fun. And the graphics look cool. And I like really like the music because it's all the music from the first game.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I actually really like the remake of Panzer Dragoon.
The way you talk about that, like that actually sells me on it big time. And that question I was jumping in to say, like, it was a genuine question. Like, I keep hearing about this game. I didn't know anything about it. Like, I can't even picture until you described it. I couldn't picture like what the hell you even did in this game. And that sounds absolutely up my alley. I need to get back to the Falconeer actually. Now that we talk about that, it kind of sounds maybe a little bit similar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Falconeer is more of a like dog fighting game, or like a rogue squadron, whereas this is more like Star Fox, where it's just on rails and you're shooting at
Gotcha.
ships. So
yeah,
it's not an open space thing. It's very much an arcade experience.
That's okay. Yeah. I like on the. It's almost like at one point on rails became like a pejorative, but it's not, man. Like it's just kind of let's just turn off our brain and just play a video game, you know.
And not only that, but I will say that for those that are looking to get into Panzer Dragoon, honestly, Panzer Dragoon Orta, I think, is probably the best of those original Panzer Dragoon style games because there is one RPG called Panzer Dragoon Saga on the Sega Saturn specifically. But of those games, honestly, I think Orta is probably the best one to go into, and it probably holds up the best. It got amazing Xbox One X enhancements. It plays in 4K, and it looks like a brand new game. So I definitely think of the two that are on Xbox, that's still the one that I would personally recommend is to play Panzer Dragoon Orta. But the remake is also really solid, and I recommend checking that out if you have never played a Panzer Dragoon game.
I might just do that.
Or if you think you're going to be into this type of game. But Sean, we got to leave some time for this other game I played this week. This 2077 game. Yeah. Talk about Cyberpunk 2077, and boy,
what a game.
It was a game, all right. So first of all, for full transparency, back before I joined the Xbox Drive, I was actually, when I was on my old podcast, I was very much not buying everything on Xbox. So I actually purchased Cyberpunk 2077. I pre-purchased it back in July of 2019. Basically after E3 was over, I basically, if I remember looking at my receipt and then kind of retracing my steps, I had pre-ordered it because I had extra gift card money. And it was after we got the E3 thing with Keanu Reeves, and I'm like, and we got that the reveal of the Cyberpunk behind closed doors gameplay. I'm like, there's no way this game could possibly be bad. I had to pre-order this on PlayStation because I pre-ordered games back and forth all the time back then.
Because your consoles are like your kids. You treat them fairly. Like when it comes Christmas time, you spend exactly the same amount on every console.
Yeah,
that's how
or it's more just along the lines of I like going between both consoles. Like I'm very console agnostic, even though I'm on an Xbox podcast.
How dare you?
I like playing console games on a bunch of different consoles, and I don't like the idea of spending all my time with one console.
Yeah,
that's just something I've always felt like. So back then, I was even more so trying to buy games across both platforms.
All right. So what about the game?
And
would you want to, publish a review on day one, even though patches are coming? I don't even want to get into that, actually. Tell me about your experience with the game. I have a lot to say about this, man. This is
my
a
experience
giant
with
topic.
The game itself, because, this is going to be a giant ball of wax here. The game itself does not run great on PS4 Pro.
Yikes.
I mean,
on the Pro.
Even though in Digital Foundry's analysis, it's probably the fourth or fifth best place to play the game. It's still not great. Like it runs at 30 or sub 30 frames per second, depending on where you are. The driving is really poor. It's got some of the worst driving I've found in an open world game since Grand Theft Auto 4, I would say. The shooting itself, it's okay. It's not that bad, but the inconsistent frame rate on PS4 Pro makes it a bit of trouble to do some firefights, combined with the numerous bugs and glitches, such as me trying to sneak up behind someone, me going to grab them, them disappearing, and then reappearing, and then them shooting me because they apparently saw me, I guess.
I would quit.
Because when they glitch back in, or just whenever you get out of a car, sometimes it thinks you're still in the car, so when you can't actually interact with anyone and you have to restart the entire game. But sometimes it breaks your save and then you have to reload an earlier save.
Dude, I saw a video today. Somebody was breaking down that like the AI for the world, the people walking around and the people driving, that there is no AI, that they sort of mask this by if you're looking at some cars and there's like a red light, you'd think like, well, they're going to be in a traffic jam if there's no AI. Well, the way they work around that is they remove the cars. If you look away from the car and you look back, the cars are gone. Or if you have people walking around and you scare them with some gunfire, they'll cower, they'll kind of like crouch down. You turn around and turn back and they're gone. Like, what the crap, dude?
It's like playing an NES game a lot of times. Where it's
there's
just
not enough
you'll
memory.
screw them off the screen or something like that. But yeah, and not only that, but one of my favorite things, of course, from this game is when it crashes and then it resets all of your options back to default again. So you have to go in and turn all your inverts back on. You got to adjust all your HDR settings again. It's
like they unplugged the arcade machine.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I've somehow put 15 hours into this game because the one positive thing I want to say about Cyberpunk is the story itself is super interesting.
Yeah,
like, I really like the story in this game. It's just everything else, man.
Yeah.
It's just, it really
literally everything else.
It's literally everything else. And the thing is, I think the combat can be tweaked, and I think the graphics can be tweaked with patches. I think that's fixable. Like it's a very different situation than a game like Anthem, where Anthem, I think, wasn't really strong on any front. And when they tried to patch everything in Anthem, they couldn't really fix the overall game design with that game with patches.
Right.
And that's why they're doing a whole like reboot of Anthem at this point. Whereas Cyberpunk, I know there's a great game under everything else that I just talked about in there. But whether or not they could actually fix it with patching is still a mystery to me. The real question I have is, why did this game have to come out on current gen consoles at this time? Why couldn't they have delayed the current gen version of the game until next year and just release the PC version? Because apparently the PC version runs great. Like
Yeah.
there's no problem with the PC version other than a couple of bugs and glitches, but I think those are going to get ironed out pretty quickly. The Stadia version is also pretty good from what I've heard. So that is an option for people if you want to play the game right away. Also,
they did hint at that though, didn't they? When they delayed it though, I think the last time was they're like, there's a lot of versions of this game, right? And that's kind of one of the things that they were struggling with. I honestly don't know if it's even possible or palatable for them to say, no, we'll release like the PC and or Stadia one at this time, and then later on we'll like really what you're saying is they should have delayed the entirety of this thing, probably another 6 or 7 months.
Right. Or they should have just scrapped the current gen console version and just focused on Series X and PlayStation.
I know this is why this is such a jangled mess of a topic as well, because I do see a lot of that conversation happening online, and I don't think that holds a whole lot of water, to be honest with you. I just don't like. There's too many examples of other games that are doing this well for that to make any sense to me. Like, yes, that would make it easier.
I was just going to say, we played a whole bunch of them this year, so I mean,
exactly.
There's been no shortage of great games that do this type of thing well. Like this.
Yeah, this is just it's an argument that's been happening on the internet, especially with Xbox taking its stance, and then people going like, see this, and it's like, no, it's not. There's too many examples where it actually does work, where they're able to have these games scale across a giant span of technological abilities through these consoles. For this to be, you can't go to this one and go like, see, that proves this theory. It almost sounds like conspiracy theory at this point. There's no that doesn't hold any water to me, at least, Ryan.
Yeah. I mean, if it was me behind the development, I don't think they should have scrapped the current gen version. I think what should have happened is they should have done like an earlier release on PC. I think that's really what they probably should have done, because it's most stable. And you're right. What the state that the game is in now, the main thing is it's unacceptable. And
they were building it the whole time during the last like generation. Like this whole, it's not a power thing. I just don't believe that it's a power thing. This game was supposed to come out in
April.
Exactly.
In April, when the Series X and the PS5 weren't even out.
Exactly. And it was being developed without any specs, or like really like maybe they had a target in terms of teraflops and that's it. Like that doesn't make any sense. Now, if you take a further step back and go, when they originally started this, maybe they should have been, targeting the next generation. But man, they announced this game in like 2012. Like,
there's no way they could have done that from the onset.
There is no way. But the other thing that I think is interesting and maybe could be part of this conversation is that when they did The Witcher, they did it differently than what Dragon Age Inquisition did. And they did say no 360 version, no PS3 version. They're just going to go to Xbox One and PS4. They didn't do that here, and it's just kind of like maybe they made the better decision with The Witcher 3. I could see that, but the generations were different, and the timeline on the development was different. I just don't believe that they could really scrap Xbox One and PS4. There's just no way. And I do believe, and they're going to prove my point when they patch it and they make it run properly on PS4 and Xbox One. It just takes longer.
Yeah. Exactly. Like they're talking about there's going to be another big patch in January and another one in February. So I do think down the road this game will be in an acceptable state at some point. And like I said, I honestly think that there's a great game here, like a Game of the Year caliber game.
I believe it.
Underneath all of this, and it's such a shame to see a game with so much promise just come out in such a terrible state on our platform.
Enshrouded in what I would say is a totally shady like review process. And I think that there's multiple players involved here. I'm not just squaring it on Cyber or on CD Projekt Red. I'm not just squaring it on the journalists who revealed their things. But I released a tweet that I think it's dangerous. I think it was dangerous for the reviews to be released in the way that they were. I think that we're 5 years post Master Chief Collection, and I think we've solidified just as content creators like what we should do in these situations. And that's not what any of us saw with Cyberpunk. And I'm just as disappointed with that part of it as I am with the state of the game, that reviews were put out with final scores, knowing that the game in the review process, in the review period, the game was not done, that a massive patch still needed to happen, and as it turns out, more than that still needs to happen, and final review scores were done. I think that's ridiculous, and I think it erodes trust with CD Projekt Red, of course, but it erodes trust with the sites that put a final score on a game that is so clearly not done. You and I have done countless reviews over the last year and a bit as we've podcasted together. I think Ori and the Will of the Wisp was even an example where it did not perform well when we played it, and there was absolutely...
We could barely play that game.
There was no way we were going to say, this would be a 9 if it wasn't for these performance issues. Like, that's not acceptable to me. I'm kind of heated about it, honestly. I just feel like we should be expecting more, and people putting out content should be more transparent about this, that this game is not finished.
Is that I think it's okay. I think it would be okay for a lot of actually, I think the review that I read for Cyberpunk in the initial batch of reviews that probably handled it the best was the IGN review, because they were very transparent in the review. Look, we don't have the console version. This this score only pertains to the PC version of the game in the state it's in, that we got it.
Yeah.
I think, and it's very transparent from the first paragraph of that review.
Sure.
Hey, that's exactly what's going on here. Or if you watch the video on YouTube, it says the same thing, like a disclaimer at the very beginning of the video. And this was even before we knew what the console version of the game would look like. Whereas I saw a lot of outlets that weren't mentioning any of that at all. They just wrote
or
a
what
review
they
as
were
if it was
allowed to
normal.
show. They weren't allowed to show their own actual gameplay. They were only allowed to show B-roll that was provided, which means that you couldn't show, like, using video, like, these are the bugs, these are the experiences that were people happening. So yeah, like there's a lot there. Then so I'm not like pointing my finger at one or the other, like 1000%, but there's a lot. It's a complex situation that has happened here, and what ends up happening is everybody explodes. Like, I'm heated about it, people on the internet are heated about it, and I feel like this is a much better place to have this discussion than on Twitter. Like, I don't want to talk about this on Twitter, to be honest with you, because you can only do like one syllable at a time. This is a conversation and a dialogue, though.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where you and I have been doing reviews for a long time, Sean, for a year and a half now. But I mean, even going back, like, you and I have done reviews for like 4 or 5 years now, and this is the only time I've ever seen this type of thing come up, where the publisher specifically asked reviewers not to show any footage that they captured at all in their reviews. Like, I've never seen that before from working with numerous publishers.
Yeah.
So it's so strange to me that this has come up. I mean, we've had that for previews. Like, for example, when we previewed Far Cry 5 over on Game Moose, we were only allowed to show footage from the preview, like in our preview with our interview with the developers that Ubisoft provided us, because the game wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
Because that's a situation where it would make sense that you would only use that footage rather than capturing footage at the event. But yeah, for an actual review itself, like, you'd always want, and that's part of the reason why when we do the video, I always make it a point whenever we're doing a review or the Xbox Drive itself, that the video I'm showing, unless I personally didn't play the game, like if you played it, Sean, for example,
right,
that I always show footage that I captured, so you get to see my experience. I
need to be better about sending you my footage.
Important.
I really do. Because I do forget about that. That, like, I should have recorded the entirety of Donnie, my gameplay with Gears last night. I have a whole other conversation I'll tell you about like my capture setup. I'm sending back my 4K 60S Plus thing, Elgato. I'm getting the Evermedia 4K one, because it can pass through more frames per second. So I want to be able to pass through at least 120 frames, my friend. That's a whole side. That's a side thing. Is there anything else that you want to chat about with this Cyberpunk thing? I will say that I pre-ordered 3 copies by accident.
You did.
I accidentally pre-ordered 2 from Amazon and 1 from Walmart. Walmart has still not come through on that one, but I got like a really good deal on it. So I am torn, right? So I sold one of the copies. I sold it back for what I paid for it, so that was kind of a nice thing. And I'm holding on to the other copy that I've got because I paid $55 for it instead of $80. And I'm like, I kind of want to send it back to send the message, but I'm like, does that do anything, number one? And then number two is, like, when they do patch it, like, I kind of want to have it. Like, I am excited about this game, and I'm just like you. I believe there's a good game to be had here. So I will be, just in my off-air conversations with you, I'm like, I'm going to hold off on this, but I would like to play it maybe in like February or March on my Series X and have the next gen version come out, because the PC one looks awesome. It looks way better. And I anticipate that the Series X one will be similar to that in terms of this gen versus last gen.
Yeah, for sure. So before I get into the carpool, because that's going to be kind of a round out of our conversation today, there is one thing I did want to say from someone who has played Cyberpunk, and I'm going to give you my personal recommendation as to what you should do at this point. If you have a PC, you should play this game, because, again, it's a really fun game. It runs great on PC. Apparently, even on a low-spec PC, even if you run the game at low spec, it still looks better than what I've been playing on console, and it runs great. So honestly, if you've got a PC and you want to play the game, I would actually encourage you to play it, because it's got a gripping story. The gameplay is actually pretty fun, even if I have some gripes about the combat or the driving. I think the combat would be more fun with a better frame rate. So I think that it's definitely a game worth playing. But if you have a console at all, just wait for the Series X or the PS5 version to come out. Like even if you can play the base version, even after it gets patched, like I would just wait for the PS5 or Series X versions to come out then. Like that's my personal recommendation. And I think you're going to be better off for it. The game will probably be cheaper between now and then as well. So there is going to be the option to pick this game up for not full price and get a better game out of it. So that's my personal recommendation. But I want to let Mr. Badbin in the car with us because he had a specific question about Cyberpunk. So I wanted us to touch on it before we rolled on out of here. He asks, when we talk about Cyberpunk 2077 and what has been an incredibly toxic and disastrous launch, especially since Fallout 76 or Anthem, how do you think Microsoft feels about pouring all of these marketing dollars into the game and it being met with some vitriol? Do you think the payoff was worth the investment? Definitely Microsoft was all in for advertising Cyberpunk. Like they were the main console that was showing it off. And I would imagine many people at Microsoft are very upset over the situation with Cyberpunk. We can't really speculate too much about that though, because Microsoft hasn't really talked about it or released a statement or anything like that. It's ever since the game came out, it feels like they've really separated themselves from this game a bit. Like I'm not seeing as many Xbox branded ads for Cyberpunk now that the game's out. So, and that could just be
they already sold the 8 million copies. Why they don't need to advertise anymore. They sold the 8 million copies. Everybody's made their money. The only thing left over is the erosion of trust, and that's really too bad. One of the things I saw this question come in, and Babbitt actually sent it to me in the DMs, and I said right back to him, I'm like, I feel like this is actually hopefully the final chapter on what has been a terrible string of marketing partnerships for Xbox. I don't think they had a single good one, to be honest with you, Ryan. I think Anthem was part of it. Rise of the Tomb Raider, like any partnership they had just did not pay off in the way that it paid off in spades for PlayStation with things like, I think Batman Arkham Knight was one of the earlier examples. I think all the Star Wars stuff actually worked out, and somehow PlayStation came out clean with after Battlefront 2, which I think was a bit of a mess. But just overall, the partnerships that PlayStation did over the last gen, I thought were way better. The games came out better. There was better reception, and it seemed to really propel that brand that you're playing the best games over on PlayStation. And then you've got Xbox. Thankfully, the Series X version runs okay, so I hear. I haven't played it myself, but like that might be saving some of the grace here. But goodness gracious, yeah, not super positive. It's just too bad.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think that Xbox, from a lot of the games that they've chosen partnerships with, I think they've chosen good games with the exception of Anthem, like Rise of the Tomb Raider, for example. The only reason
that good. That's not what I mean. I didn't mean that it was not good. Yeah. I didn't mean that it was not good. I just don't think that like it had the impact or effect that they wanted it to.
Right. But
or there was bad games. But that one is not.
And I think that they've got some strong games coming up that they're doing this with, like Scarlet Nexus, for example. Everything we've seen of that game looks awesome. So I am hopeful for the future of
Yakuza. I think Yakuza was a pretty. It wasn't quite as strong, or even Dirt 5, but Dirt 5 wasn't quite as like explosive. I just love for them to land one of these big games that really, like I said, propel that perception that you play really good games on Xbox, because that still lingers that you don't have good games on Xbox. That sucks, man, because we know that's different. We know it's different than that.
For sure. Well, anyways, we got to roll through these last 3 questions before we go, Sean. So
all right.
Let's bring Todd Extra into the car with us at Oxtra. He asks, as a PC-only user of Game Pass Ultimate, I'm a bit bummed that Destiny 2 still isn't here, and now EA Play has been delayed, which came out yesterday, that it's been delayed until 2021. What does Microsoft need to do to get the PC side on par with Xbox? Also, why can't I purchase PC games through the Xbox app on Windows?
Dude, no kidding.
That's actually kind of surprising. To be fair, the Xbox app is still kind of in beta right now and doesn't have a ton of features. And at some point, I think they're going to integrate the Microsoft Store into it.
They've got to. And same with the app, too. Like, I kind of like the clarity and how clear the phone app is, but I can't see my achievements on my app. Yeah. What the heck?
And you used to be able to. It's not like this is a new feature. Like this is a feature that's been around forever.
Yeah. I anticipate it'll come very soon. But what do they need to do? It sucks that some of these things are getting pushed out. You got to think that maybe it's COVID, and obviously they don't want to release a subpar product. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of a timely question to happen, where we're looking at Cyberpunk and bashing that, versus what if they integrated EA Play and it just wasn't wasn't working or something wasn't up to snuff. You got to let them have that extra time. I just feel for the people who made the decision to buy into Game Pass for PC, thinking that EA Play was going to be launching at any moment, because it was like the day before it was supposed to launch. They're like, ooh, sorry.
It was actually the day of, Sean.
The day of.
It was supposed to be up yesterday.
Yeah.
And that was when they got the announcement. So, yeah. I definitely can understand that hurts. I mean, the good thing is I think a lot of the library on PC is actually a solid library, and there's actually some exclusive games on Game Pass on PC that we don't have on Xbox.
Totally.
Stuff like Undertale. So I do think that or Among Us just came to the service. So
yeah.
I do think that there are worthwhile games that are only on the PC version of Game Pass. But you're right. Like, I would love to see more parity between that and the console version.
Honestly, though, like, I feel like there's more. Somehow I feel like there's more on PC. Like, there's more exclusives that you get on PC. Like you kind of mentioned, Among Us is definitely a big one. But Flight Simulator is also there's a bunch over there.
Age of Empires,
all the strategy stuff, definitely. Yeah. So I don't know. It's just a matter of like what you're in for. If you're sort of like a PC player who also plays console, then you'll probably look at the console one going like, I'll play over on console. But if you only have PC, like, there's lots to play over there. So I'm not sure. The EA hit is not very good, though. Doesn't help.
Yeah, for sure. Well, next up, we got Plastic Hearts Podcast at Plastic Heart Pod. They ask, now that 343 has another year to work on Infinite, do you see them optimizing it for last-gen standard Xbox One to a similar level that the Xbox Series X will perform, or can they go next-gen only? So obviously, with our discussion, I don't think they're going to go next-gen only with Halo, but I think they're going to give you a worthwhile experience even on original base Xbox One. Like, they're not going to let that game be like Cyberpunk, and I would have said that even before we got the Cyberpunk situation happening.
Right.
Like, especially from a first-party game, they're going to make sure that game looks and runs well on base Xbox One. Obviously, it's not going to look probably as good or run exactly as well as my Xbox Series X, but there's no way that was ever going to happen anyways.
Right.
Like, it's not going to be a one-to-one comparison. But I do think you'll get a lot closer with it because it is a first-party game. It is Microsoft.
Yeah, well,
but
I mean, it's resolution.
I think
well, there's so many factors and so many knobs and sliders to turn up and down. But certainly, like, the resolution and frame rate can fluctuate significantly. Like, you got to imagine, you're going to be north of 60 on Series X and Series S, but like, and maybe 1X, and then like, is a 30 frames per second acceptable on a base Xbox One? Like, those are the things that we're going to have to be looking at when talking about what's acceptable for last gen. I think I don't know why, but for some reason when this question came up, I started thinking about when you had a game on like Super Nintendo, you had like maybe like a Street Fighter or something like that, and then you had like the Game Boy version, so it'd be like the same game, but like totally different. It was like what was the Batman game, Arkham? What was the one on Vita? It was like this 2D.
Batman Arkham Blackgate.
Oh, Blackgate, yes, yeah, kind of like that. Like, wouldn't that be funny if it's like you get this Halo game that looks more like a Metroid side scroller kind of thing. But no, man, I think it'll be okay. I'm really excited to see. Like I said, I think we talked about this last week. Like, the hype fire has been lit, and we'll be looking forward to updates from 343 throughout the year, and hopefully a big showing at E3 as well.
For sure. And last quick question from Mark the Canerdian at the Canerdian. He asks, Sony has Fall Guys, Switch has Among Us, and now does Microsoft have an IP that you think could work for a fun, goofy multiplayer game that could get the Twitchverse all excited and break into the zeitgeist? I mean, the one example I'll throw out there is Fusion Frenzy. If they did a new Fusion Frenzy game that was very goofy like Fall Guys, I think it would probably like be a big hit.
I'm with you, man. No, I can't beat that. That's a great answer. Definitely. Fusion Frenzy would be amazing. Totally.
Especially of Microsoft IPs. Like, that's the only one they have. Otherwise, they'd have to do a new IP, essentially. Or they'd have to find something else that's out there. But Sean, we got to go. But before we go, Sean, plugs go. You
can find me on the internet at Sean Capri, Sean like Connery, Capri like the pants. And if you like the show even just a little bit, you can support us at Patreon at patreon.com/YouMeCapri.
As for me, you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Turford. That's TURFORD. You can also find us on Twitter at The Xbox Drive, as well as on youtube.com/The Xbox Drive and podcast services around the globe. So for Sean Capri, I'm Ryan Turford. This has been episode 171 of The Xbox Drive. And for the last time in 2020, it's a palindrome, and we out.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays. Bye.